Hello, everyone. I see a lot of your signs, Virginia. Hi, Robert.
Director Solano, can you hear me? Kristen, can you hear me? Thank you.
Michelle, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
I'm going to try my new glasses today and see how they work.
Rob, can you hear me?
Michelle, are we all good?
What do you mean, are we all good?
Hey, Michelle.
Can you hear all of us? That's all.
Hi, Director Jones.
Everybody's online. Are we waiting on a couple
Director
folks?
Bernstein and the chief, I think we're waiting for.
Okay. I see Steve is here. Hey, Steve. Kristen is here too. Jim, Rob, Virginia. Okay.
Robert? Hey.
Yes, sir. We all are here, except for a couple people. So it's about almost got 2 minutes left. Anybody got any good songs to sing? Please start off with it now.
Just as a reminder, you are all being recorded currently, but sing away.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that.
Steve Miller, how's the air quality up in the city? It's horrible down here. You're on mute, Steve.
It's about 160 in my neighborhood. It's really terrible.
Terrible.
And it's about the same down in where you are?
Yeah, probably. It's getting worse.
It could be worse. We could be in Santa Rosa, but it's still bad.
Yeah. Well, the smoke is just kind of picking up.
And there's a strange color. Like there's this, it's not quite like as black and weird as it was a few weeks ago, but it's definitely orange glow in the sky outside.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
No. Michelle, do you know, is Ed Bernard joined?
I don't see him on the list. You received his link.
Okay.
He was on our call at 3. I think he's going to join.
The chief got on board yet? Chuck's here. Kathy's here. Michelle, you calling chief?
He should be, let me.
Give him a
He's
little.
just going to run to the restroom and whatever
Oh,
and be right
okay.
back.
All right. Hope everybody can wait another minute or two. Okay. Hello, chief.
Hey, Robert, how you doing?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I'm doing all right. Busy.
Yeah, I bet. It's that time of the year.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot going on.
So I think everybody's here now. Michelle, I want to open up the meeting. We're on recording.
Yeah.
So I want to open a special board meeting for October 1st, 2020, beginning at 4:02, I think it is. Roll call
Director Jones,
here.
Director McLaughlin,
Here.
Director Bernstein,
Present.
Director Crawley,
Present.
and Director Solano.
Here.
Great. Everybody's here. So can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty
and justice for all. Okay, good enough. So public comment number one, is there anybody out there in the cyberspace?
Director Jones, we have no public comment number 1.
No public comment number one. Today's agenda, we only have one item on the agenda, and that is to discuss and approve an amendment to the compensation plan for the chief officers and management and confidential unrepresented personnel. I think the chief and Christy.
Yeah, I'll start off and then Kristen can explain, I think, part of the content of the report. I know we got some board questions. We did respond back to those. Those consisted of issues regarding what has been done, who did it, who do we consult with, and then also could this be a closed session item, which Stephen weighed in on. So, if you remember when we first surfaced this, it was a concern, and it was in reaction to management leave, which had been an element of the 2020 electives. And we're not trying to relitigate 2020 here. That's a different conversation. We're trying to move forward into 2021, which means that, we're currently working on, as I mentioned to you all, open enrollment. And open enrollment has already started for all employees, which includes these two groups. So I want to thank Kristen and Kathy and Steve and Ed. We spent a lot of time working together and kind of evolving this issue, which, anytime you open one thing, when you talk about benefits, it has an effect on other things. And then you find out things that we don't deal with. You know, what makes a bona fide plan? There's rules that the state and federal government put in place, like anti-discriminatory clauses, which can be explained if we get to that point. But at the end of the line, in discussion even with the employees about this, and as I mentioned, we had 3 employee meetings. It really comes down to trying to be transparent and fair, and you know, as equitable as you can be, but certainly understanding that people are going to make choices based upon what comes out of these meetings. So Ed Bernard's on the line. Steve is on the line. You can see him as well. I think without their help, we wouldn't have been able to move through this. We spent a lot of time together. I'm going to say probably over 10 or 12 hours working through different possibilities and issues as things came up, and we tried to go one way then another way and do different things. In the end, we really tried to touch the least amount of things, and where we touched it, we had a purpose so that we made a correction or were as fair as we could be. And I think we achieved that. And we needed to do things like separate the 401A plan from the medical plan for compliance as well. So, you know, we eliminated management leave in this next year for reasons that we can go through if you'd like, but there were issues with it going forward that we did not feel made it a viable option, and actually made it had different problems. So with that, I'll let Kristen go through the report and talk about, again, straightforward what we're doing, what we would like to do. And we needed to go to the board only because in talking to the attorneys, you're the end decision makers on this. So without you making the decision, then you know, we have a problem. And I wish we weren't in open enrollment. I wish we would have figured this out a little bit sooner, but I have to tell you, it started out fairly small and benign, and then kind of morphed into something that was much larger and then not so easy to be resolved. So Kristen, take it from there.
Okay, so for 2020, we had it set up, the chiefs and non-exempt employees in the unrepresented group were part of a plan where it was waiving. They got a 401A of $2,000. If they were employee only, they had $1,000 in health allowance and $1,000 in the 401A. If they were plus one, in a plus one plan, they had $1,500 and $500 in a 401A. And if they were family, they had $2,000 in a health plan and $0 in a 401A. So everyone equally got $2,000. For exempt employees in the unrepresented management group, those that were in that had a waiver got $2,000 worth of management leave. Singles got $1,000 worth of management leave, and plus ones got $500 worth of management leaves, and their health allowances were the same as the other groups. So 0, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000. So we found out that there were a couple issues with this, and the whole reason we had moved to that is we wanted to get rid of implications from the Flores case. So we did not want to affect the overtime rate by having cash back. Previously, everybody, instead of a 401A or management leave, got that money in cash instead. So to not affect the overtime rate from the Flores case, we were looking to get away from the cash back. There was also another implication in the Flores Act that affected both exempt and non-exempt. It was very lightly touched on as to if a plan is considered bona fide. And we had some issues with that because the amount of cash we were giving people could put us in a category where it could be determined that our plan wasn't bona fide and therefore would have no pre-tax ability. And so the employees would be paying tax on that money as well as the employer. So we were trying to get away from that, and we were trying to make it kind of fair across the board. But in creating the management leave and the 401A, we got into the place where you had unrepresented because the 401A was not technically part of the cafeteria plan, it was outside of it because it doesn't qualify as a cafeteria option. Then if you looked at somebody who had employee only coverage, somebody that was exempt got $2,000 because the management leave fell under the cafeteria plan, and somebody that was non-exempt only got $1,000. So that created a discriminatory issue because the management employees are considered high wage earners. So we had to fix kind of address a bunch of issues, but we had a lot of employees that are on a single plan or that had been waiving that had kind of grown to depend on that cash as wages because it had been that way for years with the district. So moving away from that last year was very difficult for some people because they'd come to depend on that money. So by coming up with those two options, it kind of satisfied, some of that. So when we were looking at this, we had to keep in mind that we still had some employees that are no longer receiving that money as cash and, are still count it as their compensation. So we couldn't just give everybody, $2,000 to spend on medical because, somebody in a single plan, their plans only cost $800 or so. So then they really take kind of a hit in overall compensation. So we spent a lot of time looking at what we could possibly do. So we, and some of the options that we had explored, we felt that keeping it at the tiers was useful. So because it kind of contains the cost for each level. So for singles, we kept it at $1,000. Their plans usually are between $800 and $1,200, I believe. And so it gives them a little bit more. For plus ones, we found that $1,500 was not enough to even cover a plus one plan. So we thought it would be the most fair to bring that up to the Kaiser rate. And for families, the Kaiser rate in 2021 is going up to $2,115, but we wanted to still kind of keep a cap there so that it left more money in this sort of pool. So looking at people's current elections and the changes that we would make, we knew that there would be a few moves in people's elections because of that. And we didn't want to mislead the board with any sort of figures as to what would be left over. Whereas when we kind of did this with IFF, wasn't that we were misleading the board, but we did say, if everybody stayed the same, this is what it would be. And they wiped out the cash back, but we used that as a cost savings and put money other places. This right now, we're not creating a whole new contract. So we're looking for a place for it to go right now. So because we were having to detach the 401A from the cafeteria plan, it kind of made sense to go ahead and put it there. So we looked at, if we budgeted everybody at $2,000 a month for 2020 or 2021, this is how much money we would have left over as a group if everybody's election stayed the same. And then we also looked at, these are the people that have dependents that are currently on a spouse's plan that are likely to change their elections. In fact, we even polled our employees to find out who would likely change if those very generous 401A and management leave options were to go away. So we took those things into consideration, factored those new numbers in, and came out with about $500 per employee to go into a 401A. So for people continuing on a waiver, they would get $0 towards health, but $500 in a 401A. Somebody that's single or a single plan would be $1,000 in a plan, $500 in a 401A. Somebody plus one, 1630 or 1627.28 plus $500 in a 401A, and family would be $2,000 plus $500 in a 401A. So we had to keep it the same across the board for the 401A, and we had to disconnect it from the cafeteria plan. So looking at that, it is not expected to cost the district anything, or if it is, it would be very minimal. People, in this group could leave, and then we could bring somebody else in, and maybe that person's on a family plan, maybe that person's on an employee-only plan. We don't know, and we can't predict what that's going to be, so that could sway whether we go slightly over or slightly under. So, but when we did come up with this plan, it was meant to be cost neutral.
And one thing too on that, we talked with Ed just today, because I saw that was, obviously one of the concerns. And in terms of that being a concern, that can be changed. So we can open up the 401A, and based upon, people adding, getting married, having a child, whatever, we can increase or decrease as needed, probably on a quarterly basis, per what Kristen said. So if somebody left, retired, if we added somebody, and based upon what their situation was, if they were single plus one or family, that can be adjusted, because I did see that concern. So we're not saying that the $500 amount is stuck there. It may be higher, there may be more the employees will get based upon at the end of who makes what elections, or it could be less. But the whole point is cost neutrality for the district to what it currently is costing. And with that, unless Steve wants to say anything, I think we're about ready to open it up. Steve shaking his head.
Ed, you got anything to say? Add to it? If not, then we'll open it up for the board. Any questions?
I did have one, just one point on the 401A. So the way the 401A plan is currently written, it provides, the contribution amounts that are currently in place. So, that are tied to the health enrollment level. So anytime you wanted to change that, you would, so like for 2021, to change that, you would need to amend that plan. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And it may be possible to do a discretionary contribution so that you would have the flexibility to change the contribution amount. So just wanted to throw that out there just so that was clear.
So, and Ed, per what you just said, I'll just add one thing. So in terms of, again, the go forward, that was another compliance issue for us, is that we wanted to make sure going forward, like we did on everything, even offering this to all the employees was a compliance issue on the anti-discriminatory laws, making it so that this is separate from the healthcare. That's a compliance issue. So I don't know if you want to say any more about that, but we looked at, with Ed's help and Steve's help, we looked at all the legality issues going forward to make sure that we were absolutely in compliance. I had no idea about anti-discriminatory laws. I know a lot more about them now. And obviously, as Kristen mentioned, you know, that's why everybody has to have access to that, because you cannot discriminate against anybody, one group against another. So you have to level the floor for everyone, and everyone has to be offered that as a benefit.
Robert, I have questions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bernstein, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. These are just preliminary questions. I have lots of comments, but let me make sure. This wasn't clear to me from the staff report. I thought that the amount for insurance that we were charging for the insurance, or I'm sorry, the allocation we were given was unchanged. But you're saying that the +1 is the only insurance that changed, and it went from 1,500 up to 1,627. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay. And then I have a question for Ed, please. Maybe two. I have two questions for Ed about the 401A. We've been putting in unequal amounts for this past year. And I think that could raise a challenge to the legitimacy or the tax deductibility of the plan. But is there anything that we can or should do to cure that?
It's a good question. I think so. I think why the special meeting was called specifically to because of the timing. We're coming up on open enrollment, and so I think the goal was to try to get in place what needs to be in place before the 2021 plan year. So I think it's a really good question, but my understanding was the goal is to address the immediate issue, which is going forward. And the issue is that you have to have all this in place so that employees can make their elections under the cafeteria plan for the beginning of the year. So
I'll interpret that to mean it's not politic to answer the question right now, and I'm willing to leave it at that. Let me ask you another question, though. Isn't it true, though, that we could make a contribution into the 401A as a bonus, and we could discriminate among literally each employee if we were making this as a bonus to them rather than as a regular contribution?
Yeah, it's also a really good question. You raise a really good point. So on the 401A plan, there's a lot of moving parts here, but on the 401A plan, you can in fact discriminate because this is a governmental entity. If you were not a governmental entity, you're a private entity, you could not discriminate. But governmentals are not subject to the qualified plan non-discrimination rules. So you could in fact have different contribution amounts for different groups and different employees. Absolutely true and correct. The issue, there's really two issues. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I know your time is valuable. But there's an issue with the qualified plan, the linkage between the qualified plan and the health benefit election. That's really a tax issue. These are all kind of tax issues, but it's a straight tax issue. And generally you can't have that type of election between a non-taxable benefit and a deferred taxable benefit, which your 401A plan is. Because that could have adverse tax consequences for your employees who elect the non-taxable health benefit. So that's one issue, and that's the reason for the need to disconnect those two. So that's one piece or one issue that this proposal addresses. The other issue, which isn't on a discrimination issue, relates to the cafeteria plan and the management leave. And for the exempt management employees who got if you get a higher, basically cafeteria plans can't discriminate in terms of contributions or benefits in favor of highly compensated individuals. So there's generally people who earn more than 130,000 currently. So those people, you can't give them a benefit or a higher contribution than you give to other non-highly compensated individuals. So that's where the discrimination. So there's really two issues. One is the tax issue.
I want to follow up on the first issue that you mentioned, just because. So I want to be clear here. Take the person who has an $800 insurance plan. Could we put as a bonus $1,200 into the 401A, or are you saying there's too much of a linkage there and it might be considered a direct link?
Really good question. Okay, so yeah, so it is kind of getting in the minutia, but it's exactly right. I mean, it's the key issue is that the employee can't choose between a contribution to the health benefit or have that amount contributed to the 401A plan. And so it's really the choice. It's the ability of the employee's ability to choose or make an election that changes the amount that goes into each, right? And they're linked. So if I elect employee plus one and I get $1,500 to the cafeteria plan for health benefits and I get $500, or I could change that and I could elect to waive and get a $2,000 contribution in the 401A and none to the health benefit. That's really the issue. So it's an election between the two. You could have it could make it mandatory. For example, you could base it on the number of dependents they have or something that's objective that they don't have any control over, basically. You could have a mandatory contribution, and that's really the issue, is that it's the choice from a tax perspective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Robert,
Yes, Mr. McLaughlin. Go ahead.
Question for Mr. Bernard. Two-part. Could you describe the language that's created by? What's the urgency that this happened before during this open enrollment period, and what are the consequences if we took no action?
Okay, that's a great question. So so really with the cafeteria plan, so the cafeteria reason for the urgency is that cafeteria plans, the IRS rules for cafeteria plans require that employees make an annual irrevocable election before the beginning of the plan year. So whatever benefits you're going to offer people under that plan basically have to be in place before the beginning of the plan year, and the plans have to be consistent with what's being offered. So the urgency really is because open enrollment is happening. There's a need to get to establish what the benefit levels will be under the cafeteria plan, so that employees can make those elections before the beginning of the year. That's really the urgency.
And the consequences if we don't act on this proposal?
The consequences would, well, if you maintain the current structure. So if you have a choice between, employee choice between contribution levels, contributions to the cafeteria plan for health benefits and contributions to the 401A plan, the real risk there is that if, you know, the IRS were to come in and audit, like a payroll tax audit, something like that, they might identify that, and they might take the position that the employees who elected the non-taxable benefit would are actually subject to tax on what they could have gotten as a contribution to the 401A plan, as an example. So that's something that's just, you know, it's potential exposure. And so the goal is to eliminate that risk going forward. So that's why, and because the health benefit caps in terms of the health benefit allotment the district provides have been tied to that, there's a need, because those elections for the cafeteria plan have to be, you know, done before the beginning of 2021. There could be an issue if, you know, employees have to know what they're electing and the consequences of what they're electing, basically.
Is that
The
is
two
the threat
things.
is the threat from IRS, is that hypothetical or is that real? Have you seen it, IRS take action in these matters under these circumstances?
Yes, we've seen IRS audits that look at, really, IRS payroll tax audits. They look at everything, and the type, you know, things like this. There's a number of different things that are of particular concern, but that type of election is one of the things that they typically look at.
But if we have that exposure from IRS, doesn't that already exist based on our practices up to date?
Yeah, again, I know the focus is right now is the immediate concern. Certainly, the goal is to mitigate or reduce risk, right? Generally speaking, there is a statute of limitations. So 3 years generally on, you know, payroll tax assessments. So the goal is to sort of get things right now, and the immediate need because of the open enrollment coming up is to try to get these changes in place to reduce that type of risk.
Director
Robert, I have a
Scannell?
question.
You're welcome.
Director
Robert, I have a
Scannell?
question. Thank you, Robert. One, are we in violation now, Mr. Bernard?
If I could just jump in, rather than answer that question, I think nobody knows if it's not a black letter question of being in violation. We're talking about risks of a possible audit. Ed is not the auditor, so I don't even think he could tell you the answer to your question necessarily. Is that a fair statement, Ed? I do think the focus is, regardless of what's happened to date, it's generally speaking a better idea to reduce your risk by righting the ship on a going forward basis. There's nothing that this board can do today about the existing elections that employees took during open enrollment at the end of 2019. But there is something this board could do about the elections that the employees take right now that will apply for the plan year of 2021. So that's why I think Ed is struggling to assist you all with making those decisions that are in fact possible to do.
Well, thank you for that, Stephen. You pretty much answered my question, reference to my first one. My second one, Mr. Bernard, when is this due, like drop dead date, where we have to vote on this?
I'll try to answer that too, Ed, if that's okay. So CalPERS sets open enrollment schedules. Open enrollment has begun and it's happening now. Your employees need to make certain elections based on what the plan will be for the next year. If open enrollment closes and then you change the plan, they have not, the purposes of open enrollment have not been furthered. So that's really what's driving the timing of this, is to make these changes so that open enrollment can happen in an informed fashion.
What's the
Robert, may I
time
follow
period?
up?
What's the time period, Steve, between what period and what period? I know October 16th is the deadline, drop deadline.
That is correct.
Kirsten,
You
what was
mean
the-
that's, I'm sorry, I want to clarify the date. So October 16th is the last day of open enrollment, correct? Or
Yes.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, and it began on
Not the
September-
drop dead. I mean, yeah, it's obviously, but it's after October 16th, there is no open enrollment for a period of time.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And it started when? September?
September 21st.
Okay. Gosh. So we should have done this quite a while ago then, correct, Stephen?
Sure, it would have been preferable to have had this discussion a while ago. Yes, I think that's fair to say.
Okay. Yeah. And then, October 16th, wow, we got like 15 days here to make a determination. And I kind of feel like the people that were doing the volunteer groups that got stuff kind of shoved down their throats and trying to make a decision. I took a lot of notes, Robert, and I'll continue to listen to Mr. Bernard, but I have many questions which I'll wait till the end for. Okay, Robert?
Well, I think you need to do it now because this could be the end of it. I don't know unless Virginia or I don't have any other questions, so wait for the vote. Because I think we somewhat talked about this a little bit at the last board meeting, if I'm correct, or at least it was brought to our attention. And it was, a special meeting was asked for to try to get, bring out all the concerns that was preliminary board members had. And so that's what has been done. And so it's really based upon what's presented before you right now, not whether, we was out of compliance 2 years ago or last year. It's about what we're doing now. And the information is before you. So you just need to vote on that. Do you like it or you don't like it? The staff has done a great job in terms of trying to mitigate that with other employees as well.
All right. Thank you,
Can
Robert.
I ask you a question, Rob Solano?
Yes. Right. Go ahead, Virginia.
So can you just please clarify, Rob? I don't know if I'm understanding your question right about the volunteer groups. What do you mean things have been shoved down their throats?
That was a quote that was at our last meeting where there was a program by the fire district that was shoved down their throats that they didn't want it. So it was just a metaphor. Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay, I thought you meant that the volunteers were involved with this. Sorry.
No, that's how I feel. And,
okay.
I'm only 1 in 5 here. Thank you, Robert, for letting me express my opinion. I'll continue to listen. Thank you.
Robert, I have another question.
Yes, Chuck.
I want to get clarification from Stephen Miller, please, about the deadlines here. I understand that there's this October 16th deadline for CalPERS for the election of the medical benefits. But there's no statutory requirement that we decide on the amount of the contribution to the 401A plan by any date except before December 31. And while I understand it would be better if employees had the full range of knowledge of what we were going to do about the 401A before December 31. we could always add a new benefit if we wanted after October 16, and there's no statutory reason we could not do that. Am I correct in my understanding?
I mean, I'm happy to let Ed correct me, but the issue is you want to make sure that your employees aren't choosing between a non-taxable benefit and a deferred taxable benefit. So if you only fix one of those two prongs, you still leave the potential for that choice that's at the heart of this problem. How did I do, Ed?
I think that would be a misread. I don't think that's correct at all. I'm sorry. I think that the decision has to be made when these are simultaneous decisions. If we didn't have before them the possibility of electing the 401A, in other words, if that issue was not before the staff, and we just made a decision about what we wanted to do about that later, the staff wouldn't be, they wouldn't be conflicted or being forced to decide taxable versus non-taxable at the time of their October 16 election.
Well, so if you'd like to ask your question again, I'll see if maybe I understood it differently, or maybe Ed is the better person to answer your question.
I guess, Ed, I'd like to just confirm that we don't have to decide this 401A today. The only thing we have to do by October 16th is have the employees decide what benefits they want. We can decide to add a 401A later if we chose to do that.
Ed, are you able to answer?
Yeah, I guess the issue is that right now you have a compensation plans that provide for that choice, and the health benefit election is part. That election is part of those compensation plans currently, right? So you would be if you did not address the 401A contribution at the same time, then all that was offered to employees during the election was health benefits, health benefit amounts, and the 401A was not part of that, then it seems to me that you would be not consistent with your compensation plans.
Not consistent with what plans? These are all new plans every year.
Right. But but this, right now your compensation plan says they get a choice between the 401A plan contribution and a health benefit contribution.
But if we remove that choice, then they wouldn't have a choice.
Right.
And we could do that, right? There's no reason we can't do that.
You could do that.
That's all.
What's the point? What's the point of taking away people's choices? I'm losing it. I'm trying to understand each other, but I don't understand why you want to take away people's choices. It's costing us more money as far as you're concerned?
The reason you do that is because for the person who elects an $800 insurance policy and right now is able to put $1,200 into his or her 401A plan, we're now saying, forget the $1,200, you only get $500. Sorry. And if you think that's fair to employees, you can, but I don't think it's fair to employees. I think that's what's inconsistent with what we've been doing. And I think we're trying to make a decision here being put under the gun in a fake way. That is, it's not true. We don't have to decide on this 401A plan today. We're being presented with a choice that is, in my opinion, discriminatory against single people in favor of married families. And these married families are getting a $500 kick in their bonus, and we're taking away benefits from other employees. And the other thing is, it's simply not true that it's cost neutral to the district. We don't know what the cost of it is. And I did a calculation just on the assumptions that Kristen gave us about who was going to do what. And the fact is, instead of that costing us $46,000, it cost us over $48,000. Even if those assumptions might not even be true. The fact is, it is not cost neutral. That is a misstatement. And the fact is, we're discriminating against at least a quarter of our employees. So those people, for example, even the married plus one or single, I'm sorry, the employee plus one, those people are now getting $1,627 plus $500. They're getting $2,100. And before they only got $2,000, so they're getting more benefit. And we're treading on the benefits of the single or the waiver people. And I don't think it's right or fair. And that's why I'm asking, why do we have to make this in this rush decision where it's, you have one choice? I don't think we've got the best plan here. I think we could craft a plan that would meet our desires to treat employees equally. And I don't think we have that now. So Robert, that is perhaps too long an answer to why I'm bringing this up, but that's why I'm bringing it up. I don't believe we've done the best we can do here. I believe we can do better. I don't believe we've explored all the alternatives there are. And I have some firsthand knowledge of these things because we've done these in my organization, and not in the same way and not with the same concerns exactly, but I know that there are vehicles to be able to do this. And I believe if we took enough time, we could do it right. And we don't have to decide on this 401A tonight. Now that would deprive employees of gaming the system such that they figure out which insurance benefits to take. But you know what? They would still have the opportunity to choose insurance, and they wouldn't have something else that they're making a choice against because they wouldn't know what the opportunity was. I just think we can do a lot better if we had enough time to discuss it fully.
So Kristen, could you explain the problem again to me?
With not deciding today?
No, just the problem of why do we recalculate? We went through this whole exercise. You guys, could you eliminate it? I just want to understand what the problem. It just seemed like I've just dropped out from Mars, and I feel like it right now. Right. Just explain to me what the problem is that we currently have.
So right now, with connecting the 401A to the plan, really, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Director Bernstein, but a lot of the issues with medical plans and the reasons why they've kind of changed is because medical plans are meant for medical benefits. And we gave employees a great benefit by allowing them to have the cash back for so many years. But they do allow us to create tiers for each one. There's just not a whole lot of other options under the cafeteria plan that we can give people in addition to what we're already offering them, which are the FSA plans, flexible saving plans for dependent care and medical. We already give these groups long-term disability. They pay for short-term disability through the state, and they already have a life insurance policy. So the other options, and we were looking for more creative ways to make everyone equal at the $2,000, and we just could not find a way to do that. So our big problem now is disconnecting the 401A plan from the medical plan, because you can't have something that's tax deferred connected to the cafeteria plan. So we're just trying to separate the two. And really the big thing we got from employees when we had these meetings, we did give people options. Do we give, everyone this amount, and then families are paying out of pocket this amount, and people in a single plan, or then everybody's equal. But the majority of people wanted medical, or at least the majority of medical paid for, because the plans are expensive, and it's a cost. And so, yes, I do see that there's that issue, but we put this out to employees, and this was the route that most people wanted to go. There were a few that were unhappy, but the majority were happy in the end.
Robert?
Thank you. Yes, Jim. Mr. McLaughlin, yes.
If looking at the elections, the projected elections, it looks like a clear majority. If we adopted this proposal, the clear majority are better off than they were before. Specifically, if I elect the family plan, I get the $2,000 health care benefit and a $500 contribution to my 401A. So whereas before I was getting $2,000, now I'm getting $2,500. And that would seem to be clearly, to echo Chuck's point, it seems to be clearly at the expense of, the waiver and the single folks who are, they go from, a $1,000 contribution to the 401A to half that. I can't regard that as fair.
Yes, and that was a really difficult thing for us to talk about. But unfortunately, the cafeteria plans just don't give very many options outside of medical. And so to make it fair, it was either we take it away from everybody and then nobody, gets it, or, for medical, or they only get a small portion, or we put it for what it was there for in the first place, which was medical.
So eliminating the 401A program entirely is an option here. Is that correct?
It is an option, but then you have the people that are waiving or on an employee only program are losing out even more. So,
right. In the wake of the Flores decision,
mm-hmm.
what kinds of things did other agencies do? And I think for me, again, it's a missing component here. My experiences with state and federal government, and these healthcare benefits are a benefit.
Right.
And you qualify at different tiers depending on, single and family. If you waive, you get nothing. So I'm wondering, is that more commonplace than what we have now?
So the amount of cash back that we used to give employees, not a common thing for people to get $1,400 in cash to waive. Typically, if they did offer cash, it was restricted. It was limited to a certain amount. Many cities and agencies and districts have a tiered program where if you are employee only, it's this. If you are employee plus one, it's this. If you're family, this is your thing. Another big thing is we'll pay 90% of the second highest plan, or 90% of Kaiser, or 100% of Kaiser, or 100% of the second highest plan. They had a lot of that, but giving the amount of cash back that we used to give was not very common.
So is it fair to say that we are the outlier in providing the medical benefit and a 401A benefit? Is that exceptional? I mean, that's not the norm, is it, Kristen?
I have not seen them connected before. I think the problem was that we tried to get creative, and becoming creative, we caused more issues than we fixed. So we tried to get creative in order to keep everybody with the same amount of benefits, and unfortunately later learned that it was no longer compliant.
I did want to input one thing, and that was that the agencies that I had looked at actually were similar in cash back before the Flores. So,
but what are they doing now, Kathleen?
But I don't know what they're doing now.
Well,
So
you
you have to look that up. Yeah.
I think it's important for us to know. But
Right.
in preparation for the meeting today, I looked at the board policy document, and we have a compensation principles listed in our policy document. And I think we are way outside of our own rules on discussions and decisions regarding compensation. Where we talk about, marketplace norms, we talk about what other agencies are doing, paying a reasonable amount, being fair and equitable to our employees. I think we're way outside. I think the board was not included in any meaningful way in this entire effort. And I think we're now being asked to make decisions when, again, we are way outside of our own established policies. Thank you.
Chuck?
Yeah, I have a question. This is for Ed. Ed, is there any reason, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just trying to explore what the options are. Is there any reason that we couldn't reduce the allocation, the insurance allocation to everybody across the board to $1,000 and then make a 401A contribution of $1,000 for everyone? Could we do that?
Edward, you're on mute. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry. Yes, yes, you could do that. You could reduce the health credit to $1,000, and then the employee would have to pay and put $1,000 in the 401A plan mandatorily with their choice, and then the employee would have to pay out of pocket for, if they wanted to elect employee plus one or employee plus two, then they would have to pay for that with pre-tax salary reduction.
And in doing that, pre-tax, because it's under the Section 125.
Correct.
Is that correct? And
Yes.
at some point on the 401A, if they ran into a cash issue or they had a kid going to college or something of that sort, they could actually borrow money from the 401A to help finance that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the 401A plan can offer participant loans that's subject to certain limits. Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any more comments?
I have a question.
Virginia?
So, because I'm definitely not an expert in this field, Ed, is it, or Kristen, if it almost seems like that the board needs some time, I think, and I'm not going to speak for my fellow board members, but it feels like a lot of the issues that we're bringing up are things that probably could be discussed at the HR committee level, but I understand, and I'm being sensitive to the open enrollment deadline. Could we extend open enrollment until, and then also at the same time kind of have the HR committee look at this quickly and, study this, in the next within a week as a priority? I mean, gosh, the fact is that we're dealing with fires and real life emergencies that I know the chief is involved with. And this just seems to be a problem that we do need to get past, and I want to be respectful of the time. But can we keep open enrollment a little bit longer while we, as the HR committee, look at this and then come back with another to another special board meeting in a week or so? I mean, I don't want to put too much time pressure on everyone, but I want to be mindful of the fact that there is a time deadline, and that there are real emergencies all over the state.
So unfortunately, CalPERS does not give extensions on open enrollment. So we do our medical plans through CalPERS. So we are
Even under these circumstances, Kristen, I mean, it's just.
Yes, yeah,
ridiculous.
unfortunately, I've worked at another agency before where we realized there was an issue with the contribution midway through, and even there, they could not make an exception to allow people to change mid-year. They had to wait the regular 90 days. One option we could do, and I hear the options you're bringing up here, Chuck, and I want you to know that those are all options that were taken to the employees. One option here we could do is, if you are worried about it going over what we currently have budgeted, we could look at hold off on doing the 401 amount until people's have chosen their elections, knowing that what is kind of left or banked from what is budgeted could then be split into the 401A, if that's something that would make you feel a little bit more comfortable. If you are afraid that we are going over what the board has already approved to budget for this. But we did explore a lot of these options, and we did explore a lot of these options with the employees and got their way in. And
So are you saying we would be dividing a function?
I mean, we could approve it as it is right now, but look at the 401A amount after open enrollment has gone through and we've had a chance to verify what everyone's elections are.
Robert?
Chuck, how do you feel about that?
Virginia, could you?
Oh, sorry,
have a
Robert,
question?
yeah.
Could you, because Rob have a question.
I'm done for now,
Chuck,
thank you.
Chuck can weigh in if you want to. Rob?
Thank you, Robert. Kirsten, if this is not voted on today, will these employees lose their benefits or be penalized in any way?
It depends. So if we don't vote on this today, we keep what is currently in place and people choose their elections based on that. If we do come back and change it, somebody may want to therefore change their election and won't be able to in the open enrollment time period.
Robert, can I answer the question then?
You got a question, Chuck?
No, I wanted to answer Virginia's question.
Go ahead, you got 5 minutes. Everybody got 6 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm only going to take.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert.
I have.
Did I miss you, Rob?
Yeah, she answered my question. Thank you.
I have, Kristen, I think what you're saying, how should I say, it's only one of my concerns. That is, what we're talking about is not huge amounts of money, but I'm concerned that it's a precedent for the future. From now on, we're giving $500 a month to the 401A plan. We have a very generous pension plan already at the highest levels. And to somehow start giving regular payments to a 401A without getting anything in return for that, I'm talking about through the negotiation process, I think is a dangerous precedent. We were first reassured this morning that AFSCME contract was not at issue, but the answer that I got to my questions that I posed indicated that the AFSCME was an issue and would be dealt with before January began. So it sounds like we're gonna have to deal with that one in the next 3 months. So I don't think we can possibly decide what the financial impact is on the district between now and December. But I think the answer, what you've said, and I think this is in answer to Virginia's question, I would like to see us delay. Well, you also said, Kristen, that we could continue with our current plan. I think it's clear we cannot continue with the current plan because we're jeopardizing the deductibility of our benefits and so forth. And I think what we would need to do today is simply withdraw the A plan. And by the way, I'm for trying to make employees whole. I'm not arguing to save the district money here, but I think that we would vote to remove that 401A plan right now from what we're offering today, with the idea that we'll revisit it and try to offer it between now and mid-December, say, in a reconstituted form or through some other benefit provision that we add, where we try to accomplish what our original intent was, and we try to find a better solution than we have right now. So that's what my proposal would be. So Virginia, no, it doesn't really satisfy is what I'm saying to you. I think we need a better plan.
Chuck, can I ask you, Rob, you had a question? What was the original intent, Chuck, if I may ask you the question?
I'm sorry, what was the original what?
Intent. Your statement was it's go against our original intent.
Our original intent was to give a $2,000 benefit to every employee, regardless of the size of their family. And that's what I would like to do. And you know, I'm not surprised that the majority of members want to, you know, over half the people are family people and are going to go from $2,000 benefit to $2,500 benefit. Who wouldn't be for that? At least the majority would be for that. But they're stepping on the backs of the single people who are in a minority. And I just don't think it's fair to do that.
Any more comments? There needs to be, yes, Steve.
So yeah, I just want to, I want to
say
say a couple things before, I don't know if we're going to call the vote or what we're going to do, but so remember when we found this, it was about management leave. So I understand, you know, we're kind of going down all the roads that we've gone down already. And I understand what Director Bernstein's saying. I mean, if you're a single person, you're losing here, and that's been discussed. I don't know that it's fair either. But as we went down the road with Ed and Steve helping us better understand the legalities of what we could do, you know, we spent a lot of time looking at a lot of different things, which now it sounds like maybe the board wants to do. I would just say this, I think you have to deal with the healthcare issue. If you want to separate the 401A or even come back and want to look at management leave, which can be cashed out, by the way, but may be problematic because I think it's part of a healthcare plan and not necessarily separate like a 401A. You know, you could do all of that, but I think where there's going to be big concern from the employees, and I have to say it, is we've already opened up that the compensation may be different that was in the plan already proposed in the January timeframe. My concern here for them, and somebody needs to say it, is now yet there's something else. So if we don't deal with if we don't give the 401A, you know, is that perceived as a takeaway and a trust me, we're going to fix it? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that. I mean, you got people looking at and feeling that one thing is already on the block that no one anticipated, and now we have this, and nobody purposely excluded the board or purposely made this up. When we got to healthcare, we looked at this and realized we had a problem. So we didn't know we had a problem until we looked at it. And when we did, we needed to address it. And I came to you and said, we got a problem, we're going to address it. As we went down that road, you end up with a lot of different things that you can do and can't do. That's why we had Ed spend 10 to 12 hours with us. So, you know, I just want to be fair here to the employees too, directors, and that is there's a lot at stake. There's a lot in play. you could just deal with healthcare, but then there's going to be the concern about what then with everything else. Compensation, the money that people were getting before, because now is it zero for some of them. Anyway, I just want to say that because, you know, this is Pandora's box and it's been opened. That's why we touched as little as possible. Am I saying it's right? This is from a year ago. I think the board was more involved at that point on all of this stuff. So, you know, that again, we looked at doing a lot of different things. In the end, as I told the employees, I'm going to touch the least amount that we can so that the expectations that were there are consistent with what was told to them before. Is it all right? Could we do all these different? Sure we can. But as Kristen said, we're up against the wall on the medical benefit. And understand, $2,000 for some of the family folks doesn't cover all their costs. It's higher than that, including some of the plus ones. So, you know, yeah, it depends how you will look at it. The singles, they're going to lose. The people that deferred before, they're going to lose. But, you know, is this related to healthcare or is this related to a cost amount? Now we get into a whole philosophical discussion. And, you know, I can't disagree with what Director McLaughlin said earlier, but, you know, that's what was presented a year ago. And, you know, like I said, I've tried, and we've looked at this thing 10 different ways from Sunday, and we've tried to touch the least amount of things right now. So, you know, again, I just want you to hear that, because you got employees already knowing that we're talking about the January compensation increase that was in the plan. It's being discussed whether or not that legitimately is something that could or should be done. You got AFSCME on the wings looking at everything going on. And you have now these very real issues, which, yeah, I wish we were way ahead of this thing too, but we didn't open up this until we got to the healthcare benefit open enrollment and realized, the deeper we got, that there were issues. And that's, you know, like I said, started out with just management leave and has morphed into where we are today.
So there's Virginia, we can't hear you.
So, yeah, so Harold, I appreciate that. Just a question for maybe Kristen and you. How many, I know that it's hard to understand or know what other issues are uncovered, but I mean, seriously, what other unintended situations like this do you think is going to come up or are going to come up?
Well,
I mean, I kind of feel like
I don't think there are going to be any when it comes to the plan that we've presented, because, you know, we spent, like I said, 10, 12 hours with two attorneys, primarily Ed and Stephen, side by side, you know, vetting things, then going back as a small group, Kristen, Kathy, and I, look at what could be done, talking to employees, having meetings, going back and trying to figure our way out of this where we are, to be compliant, to try and be as fair to the majority of people. And I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be fair for everybody. I would be lying to you to tell you that. But whichever, you know, we've looked at other routes to do this. And what happens is then you run into another set of circumstances. And so, you know, I don't recall ever spending as much time with attorneys talking about a benefits plan, but, you know, that wasn't the intent. But like I said, the more you peel this onion, you know, the more things you find, the more ways that you have to be compliant. Like I said, I had no idea of what a non-discriminatory plan was.
How did we even get to this situation? I know Ed was brought in by Myers-Nave. I mean, I just feel like if you look at the 9 years, at least that I've been on the board, and probably even before then, it just seems like the HR area, and this is not a knock on Kristen at all, has just been uncertain in many ways, you know, in terms of, you know, are we doing the right thing? Are we not? I'm just looking at a much bigger picture. So, I mean, I appreciate that Ed was brought in by, you know, Myers Nave, I think at the time, right before we hired Hanson and Bridget. So I do appreciate everything you've done, Ed. This is a bigger problem to me, Harold, than this situation right now. And so I guess I don't want to come up with this bad situation again, or this uncertain situation again. And so, you know, besides addressing the immediate problem, we got to think of the bigger problem too, because this is not the first time HR has been problematic in this fire district.
Well, let me say this, because you know, I know we're
And this
focused-
is not a knock on Kristen whatsoever, Kristen.
No, I
I
don't-
thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Trust me.
Look, we worked as a team on the go forward, and we brought the attorneys in to make sure that we did everything correct, with what we thought was the fairest way forward. You know, I don't want to relitigate the past right now. We're happy to have that discussion separately.
Well, I'm not trying to do that, Harold.
No, I
It's
know,
just
but
I
I
don't
mean-
want another surprise again 2 years
Well,
from now.
I don't think you're going to get that based upon the amount of time that we spent and why we gave you the proposal that we've given you. That said, I think there were some fair points made today. And I don't, you know, we're trying to be as fair as we can, again, to all the employees. And I wish there was a way that everybody would be 100% satisfied. The problem that we're going to have is anytime you try and do that, it's not easy. And I started out there too. I don't, you know, look, if we could just give people cash and be done, that would be the fairest thing to do. But that's not in line with the purpose of healthcare. That doesn't, you know, that leads into where we were with management leave, which had its own, believe me, set of problems that we spent an hour and a half talking about first about how to fix it. And then 2 more hours, I realized in a 3.5 hour meeting why we didn't want to do that. We wasted an hour and a half probably even just talking about how to fix it when I realized all the problems with it. So, you know, we are where we are and we got to move forward. I don't want the board to feel like it's a shotgun wedding here either, but we got to address the open enrollment healthcare issue for sure. And then, you know, I understand the desire with the 401A. I'm not sure if I understand that we're eliminating or doing something different, because now we're back into Pandora's box and you have employees watching this who wonder then what's going to happen, because is it going to be better for them, or are they going to lose that at a time where, I'm sorry, but you guys have discussed their compensation in January. And so we throw a lot of doubt out there at a time where I would prefer that we don't do that, that we let people know how we appreciate their work and that we create less turmoil, because that's kind of where we are. And again, I'm not putting this on the board. This is where we are. I mean, we did not get into management leave with the thought that all of what we're talking about followed behind it. But once you open it and you look at it and go, well, wait a minute, what about then this now? And then, as I said, you know, working through these issues with the attorneys, it was much more complex than even I could have imagined. So we are where we are. I know I'm not giving you the greatest answer, but I'm not sure there is the greatest answer here. There's just where we are, and this is it.
Thanks, Harold.
I think Jim has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. You know, Harold, you're making a linkage between the proposal tonight and any discussions that may occur relative to the scheduled 3% raise in January. And I don't think this is the proper forum to do that. And I don't think anyone should presume to know what the outcome of our discussions will be relative to that scheduled pay increase. Whatever happens tonight would certainly be taken into account. So I don't think, you know, if there's uncertainty, I can certainly understand that. But again, I don't think anything has been said that should lead anyone to believe that that it's not an open and fair hearing of the issues before we make a decision relative to that, before the board makes a decision relative to that scheduled pay increase.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Director, because I think that hopefully will quell some of the concerns that the employees have. So, you know, again, that's, I appreciate that because, you know, this issue was open, so it is material, it was opened, so it's in play. And I think how some people perceive that is in a negative way. So I'm hopeful too that, you know, we look at this, it's about fairness and equity and what people think is going to happen and treating people fairly. So, you know, thanks for the comment. I think that may go a long way to maybe quelling some of the concerns. And remember, as we're having employee meetings, these are things that come up. So
I think there, if I may, I don't see any other hands up.
So, mine's up, Robert.
Okay, Chuck.
I just want to ask Kristen quickly about the $1,000 amount and the $2,000 amount. The +1 amount is very precise, $16.27 and 28 cents. Are the other two amounts exactly 1,000 and exactly 2,000, or are they uneven amounts also?
No, those are 1,000 and 2,000. We wanted to touch as little as possible with what was already in place. However, we did want I think that it was done in error last year that the employee +1 amount did not cover an employee +1 plan. So we wanted to bring that up to where it would.
But if somebody buys the other, so what is this, like Kaiser Silver or one of those kind of level plans?
It's just Kaiser. That's
Okay.
the Kaiser.
So the Kaiser, somebody actually pays $1,000 or somebody actually pays $2,000. Is that correct?
Yeah. So an employee only in Kaiser is $813. Employee +1 is.
So the $1,000 is actually more than what they pay for the Kaiser plan.
That is correct.
I see.
yeah, Director, we looked at what everybody had elected in each category. And obviously we know a little bit about the go forward for 2021 because that's what we're talking about. And so that seemed the fairest way to deal with the +1s. And again, trying to touch the least amount of things is the 2,000. Yes, there are people that their health care is going to cost more than that. But to the point of the 401A, then they get a little bit more there. You know, the 1,000, to your point, people could be under that amount. And for the +1s, there's one employee is way over that $1,627 because that's an option they can select. But, you know, that is at least the 1627 is the floor, so to speak.
So let me just understand the mechanism. I'm sorry I know it's very detailed, but that's the way I am. If somebody pays $800 for the Kaiser plan this year, do they just have 1,000 left over for the 401A, or do they have 1,200 left over for the 401A?
No, they only have 1,000 for the 401A. The 401A did have to be set into groups though. Unfortunately though, the groups were connected to healthcare, but they were employee only, it was 1,000, waiving, it was 2,000, employee +1, it was 500. So those were set. It wasn't just whatever was left over went into the 401A.
Okay, thank you. I didn't quite understand that before.
Right, and not everybody had the 401A, Director, which is why we had to change that too.
So,
thank you, Robert.
Oh, you're welcome, Chuck, anytime. I think we had a point where there's 2 points that I want to make here. Hopefully we can put this to rest or figure out what we want to do with it. The first thing, like errors that I thought I heard that could be wrong, but errors that is kind of up in the air is that that it seems like there is a priority that of making this happen as soon as possible is the open enrollment deadline. And the other seemed like heartburn or area of concern had to do with supporting the 401A. And there's also seemed like a comment that was made that is out there, that whether how that applies to this, a comment that somewhere along the line that the board, of people expectation of $2,000 for all employees. And then the last one, for me, in terms of looking at, is that that this money has been given before, and that people are expecting for it to translate into today, because it's something that people had before. So I think the action that seemed like where we need to kind of move this needle a little bit, that we really need to look at, one, either prove what the recommendations are right now, either vote up and down, or look and prioritize the immediate need that we have before us. And I think the immediate need before this board is trying to make sure that the employees make some election before October the 16th. So, whether all of this can be broken apart and voted individually, but I think the immediate goal, it seemed like, is, or the area of concern attached to the vote to this particular recommendation, is the 401A plan and excess money that that this $500 or whatever that amount is, that's part of that, is an issue. But I think if all the other two plans themselves are standard, that has to be met within this October 16th deadline, then I think that there needs to be a priority in terms of moving that forward, so that doesn't get jeopardized by the employees, and any kind of, quote, penalty, perceived penalty or real penalty for the district, it may incur if we don't make that selection, have the employees to make their selection by the end. And then looking at, I see your hand, Chuck, and looking at how if the 401A plan is 401A is going to happen, what time frame is going to happen, and really biting the bullet if the board decided don't want to make sure that happen, or if the board want to increase the amount. I think the employees would be happy for that too. So one recommendation is to try to prioritize moving this agenda forward so that we don't, this October deadline, 16th deadline, is met. And then if so, what that would look like. And so just throw that out there to the board.
Robert?
Yes, Chuck.
I'd like to make a motion in order to fulfill your request here. I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate management leave from this plan as recommended, and that we go with the recommended allocations for healthcare, for insurance, excuse me, for the health insurance, except that I'd like to see us round off the +1 to $1,630, so we're not dealing with pennies here. And that we vote on that, because that doesn't seem to be controversial, and nobody seems to have opposed that. So that's my motion, is just to deal with those two things first.
I'll second that. And then are you saying, Chuck, that we can have a discussion on management leave later?
We can continue the discussion. Oh no, management leave, I was part of my motion.
No, to take it off, I thought.
To take it off, yes.
Right. So are you saying later on you'd want the discussion on management leave at a different time?
I don't think anybody wants, you might be thinking of the 401A plan, we can have a discussion of that. But the management leave wasn't, everybody wants to get rid of that, I think.
Was that, Kristen, was that part of the, I don't think that
Well,
was part of
that's part of, well, no, that's part of what the staff is asking us to consider. I mean,
No.
really,
We
what
do
they're,
want to remove the management leave.
So staff
okay,
wants
okay,
to
I
remove.
misunderstood then,
Okay.
because I'm looking at the, okay, I'll second Chuck's motion.
Wait a minute, before we go down there, let's make sure we're clear about what the motion really
If I
is.
can I
Go
ask
ahead.
one clarifying question? Just so we know kind of what to tell employees, because based upon any 401A options would be dependent upon if they just, well, okay, never mind.
No,
My
what was the
motion
thought?
doesn't address the 401A. We can deal with that separately. It's more complex. I just want to deal with the
The
allocation.
healthcare part.
Yes. And I want to deal with management leave, which everybody wanted to eliminate.
Kristen, I do want to hear that thought you had.
Well, wait, Robert, there's a motion and a second too, just to
Wait a minute,
remind
you just
everyone.
don't, I mean, I understand, I hear you, but
Okay.
everybody else is talking about asking questions. So I just want to ask the clarifying question.
Yeah,
to
no,
that,
no,
if
I know.
may.
I'm
If I
not pushing for a
can.
vote. I'm not
Well,
pushing for
I
a
think you
vote, but I do
are.
want my second acknowledged, Robert. So that's why I'm reiterating that there is a second, because I want that acknowledged, which is it's not
Why do
been.
we have these questions before? Why do we have anybody have these questions beforehand? I mean, okay. So protocol is that a motion has been made. I'm just trying to understand what the motion really is. And that's why I was reiterating what I thought I heard the motion was.
Okay,
Do all the board
thank
members
you.
understand what the motion is? Chuck, can you say it again? Because I don't know.
That we approve of the change, that we accept the allocations, the 3 allocations as listed, except I'd like to see us round up slightly to 1630, the +1, and that we eliminate management leave as part of the plan.
Okay, there's a motion been made and it's been second. Any further discussion?
But,
on it?
and just to be clear, this would allow open enrollment to continue, right, Chuck?
Yes, we would have the correct amounts and we would take out the management leave and so forth. But yes, we could go ahead with the open enrollment.
And sorry, are you keeping the 401A there as is, or are you taking it out?
I'm not dealing with it. I'm only dealing with the first 2 parts that I mentioned.
Which was taking out the management plan.
The management,
And what was the second thing?
approving the 3 allocations for the insurance.
Approving the 3 allocations for insurance, except for you wanted to have 1,600 rather than the 1,627,
No, 1630.
1630.
1,630. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
Director
then,
Bernstein, I think that in order to, I don't remember which rule this fell under, but to have the 401A, the way it's written in the management and confidential groups, that needs to go away as well.
It could, but I'm trying to simplify the discussion and just deal with the things that I think are not controversial right now, right?
Yeah.
So Director Bernstein, this is Steve Miller. Just to make sure that Kathy's comment is understood. Right now, the management plan allows for or provides that the district will make a contribution to the 401A plan based on what the employees choose for their health plan. And your motion, if I understand you correctly, just to be clear, not asking to change anything, is to just leave that alone the way it is.
For the moment, yes.
Thanks. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood.
so
Robert, could you have Michelle read the motion, please?
The motion is to
Sure.
eliminate management leave and go with the recommended allocations for the health insurance contributions, except for rounding up the employee plus one to $1,630.
Thank you, Michelle.
Is that your motion, Chuck?
Yes.
So any other comments? Motion been made, been second, discussion
Robert?
been made.
Robert?
Yes, go ahead.
You know,
Jim?
Chuck,
Okay.
you know, I understand, you know, your emotion, but I guess I'm struggling a little bit to, you know, pull out the 401A contribution piece of that. So if we approve this motion, then are we, I'm just trying to think it through logically. Would we be essentially getting the 401A program? Would we be setting that aside?
Well, I think that's what we should decide next. But what I was trying to do is not make a compound motion that had too many pieces in it. And so that we could focus on the A. I think it needs more discussion and I think it needs a motion of some sort, but I think it should be a second motion.
All right, thank you.
Jim, are you, I'm confused now. I thought taking out the management plan, eliminating that would eliminate the 401K or 401A. Am I correct to that?
That's not correct.
No. That's
Management leave and the 401A are two separate items.
separate things, right?
Okay. All right, so a motion been made.
But
Go ahead, Virginia.
no, but I understand, Jim. So what's your concern about the 401AB? It sounds
Well,
like you're, I
no,
want to hear.
I understand Chuck's approach, and I think it's a good one. I think separate those two pieces. For one thing, I think it would accomplish. We would allow employees to make their elections within this open period. So I don't have anything further to say.
Virginia?
No, I
Okay,
just,
Rob?
thanks, Jim.
Rob, you have anything else to say? Okay. So
Thank you, Robert. Yes, I just want to we definitely don't want to hurt the employees in order for them to make an informed decision and a pick. So, Chuck, thank you for making that compromise.
I think that the one thing that is hurting employees is taking out the management leave, because all exempt employees fall under that. So they're going to lose that piece.
Kathy,
Whereas non-exempt are under the 401A. I just want to make sure you understand that.
You kind of cut out, Kathy.
I think I can say what she was talking about. By taking away management leave, that's what all the exempt employees in the unwrapped group get. They're not eligible for the 401A. So by not touching the 401A at all and just removing the management leave, it does put everybody that is in exempt status at a lower benefit than what they currently have. So somebody in exempt status at $1,000 would not have that $1,000 in the 401A as is. And the other issue, and I'm not sure if Kathy was going to talk about this, was with somebody that is currently waiving, if they consider that they're still going to get the $2,000 in the 401A, may not sign up for the family plan that they were on because their spouse, weighing their spouse's plan versus $2,000 in a 401A, it made more sense for them to go with the 401A. So just two things to consider.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that if you want to deal with healthcare, deal with healthcare. But this is a house of cards. So you may want to not touch management leave because it could be a viable option. depending upon what the board wants to do, because it can also be cash allocation. But remember, Flores doesn't apply to exempt. So, but we got to mix, you know, and again, as Kristen just said, you had different plans. So and different people getting things and not getting things here. So when you start looking at all these issues, which it sounds like you're going to want to, I would not eliminate an option here because we don't know which way you're going to go. And so keep all your options open. You know, the only reason we said eliminate it was because we picked everyone going to the 401A because of the anti-discriminatory clause. So, you know, again, I would just, if you're going to deal with healthcare, deal with healthcare. If you're going to deal with the rest of it, don't limit your options, because you're going to spend a lot of time here doing what we did, trying to figure out what affects people. And this is a bigger issue than just, you know, I think maybe you're understanding at this point, but I would just do healthcare if that's what you want to do.
Isn't that the motion, is to just do healthcare
No,
now?
because it says get rid of management leave.
Eliminate management.
Oh, I see.
Now,
Yeah.
now, if you do that, you are eliminating something down the road that maybe you would have wanted to use in a different way, meaning giving people cash. Okay, because that's one of the controversial issues here too. But Ed will tell you it is acceptable if you do it the right way. So, you know, but I don't want to, we could go on and on. I'm just saying, don't take any arrows out of the quiver if you're going to separate this stuff out.
Now, let me say, I made the motion, and now you're confusing me. I was under the impression that management leave was something that was discriminatory, was a problem, and we're trying to eliminate it. But in any case, CalPERS doesn't care about management leave. It doesn't affect health benefits. Why can't we eliminate it for now? If it turns out to be a benefit that's important, we can bring it back later. We don't have to deal with it to deal with open enrollment. We got 2 months to deal with it in a rational way. And there's just no reason to deal with it tonight, in my opinion.
Well, so I guess my question is this something that we need to deal with open enrollment right now?
Not management leave.
Well, I'm asking Kristen and Harold.
I think it's more of an Ed question, because
Or Ed, somebody.
when we went down this path, everything's tied together right now.
Ed?
I want to make sure I understand the question you're asking.
I think there seems to be some confusion, and at least I'm kind of with Chuck on the confusion part. And maybe Chuck's not as confused as I am, but management leave, it sounds like, is part of the healthcare thing, even though I think, at least for me, and I don't want to speak for Chuck, that we thought it, or I thought it was kind of separate, that it wouldn't be so tied in that it would affect in a discriminatory way the people who would be able to take who would be part of the management leave group.
Yeah, so the management leave it's basically in its central form is elective paid time off.
Right, like a PTO, right?
Right. So people could, and it basically for the exempt management, unlike the non-exempt and some of the other folks that get the 401A contribution, they got a $2,000 flex credit.
Yes.
Cafeteria plan, and they could apply that to the various, to health benefits and to the other benefits. So if they elected a employee plus one or employee plus two, whatever it is, with $1,500 to apply towards their premium, then they'd have $500 that they could use to purchase the elective paid time off. And that benefits, the reason why it's connected is that's one way it's connected. the other way it's connected is that it is a benefit option under the cafeteria plan, unlike the 401A. So that's sort of why it's
Connected.
tied.
Right. I mean, he just said it, which is it's under the cafeteria plan. So whereas the 401A had to be separated, this does not. So you're eliminating an elective if you go down just the healthcare path currently. So
Chuck, would you want to leave the management leave in there and just take out the 401A so that there could be further discussion on that?
Well, let me just make sure I'm understanding from Ed. When they do their open enrollment, are they going to elect between now and October 16th how much they're going to do that for, how much they're going to take next year to be paid for?
Yeah, so, right. So when they make that election, and it's tied together. So it's the CalPERS enrollment period sort of dictates the October 16th deadline, right? But the election they're making, so right now, exempt management get $2,000. So the election they make is how that they have to make by October 16th, assuming no change were made, they'd have to make an election as to how to apply that $2,000. Whether it applied, whether they applied to health benefits, to management leave or health FSA or whatever. And I think the point that Krista and others have made is that so the people who don't get that benefit currently, they have this other option with the 401A under the current structure. So it's all tied together. That's
In terms of the management leave, but not necessarily the 401A, right?
Well,
Who are you addressing, Virginia?
To Ed.
yeah.
Ed, we can't hear you. Did you hear
No.
the Virginia question? Did you say it again, Virginia?
So the management leave is all tied in together with the healthcare elections, but the 401A may not necessarily be.
Okay. Well, currently,
Is that
I mean, for 2020 it was. So this was all tied together, right? All of these elections they're all so the 401A plan was part of a package for certain people.
But the healthcare, okay.
no,
So,
Virginia, the answer it's no. So 2021, as we talked about earlier, had to be separate so that you had a bona fide healthcare plan. The problem has been is it's tied. So it needs to be separated, but management leave did not need to be.
Right.
We tried to get rid of that for other reasons that we kind of touched on. But if you're going to separate all these things, then what happens is, and this is why I say it's a house of cards, then you eliminate other options that people currently have that are electives, not everybody. So, again, it sounds maybe easier than it is, and it's not. So, you got to be careful going in, eliminating options because that affects people too.
Well, I'm sorry, let me change my motion then, or amend my motion.
Well, hold on, then let me remove my second, Chuck.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let me just deal with the 3 insurance items right now and not deal with the management leave thing. I thought that the other reasons for eliminating it were so compelling that we wanted to eliminate it no matter what. Unfortunately, I mean, these people should be in different groups, and we should be dealing with these as 2 separate groups, the exempt and the non-exempt. And I think we made a mistake lumping all the people in together because that really confuses everything. But in any case, my motion is simply the first part that was read, that we approve the 3 amounts for the insurance allocation, rounding off the second one to $1,630. That's my amended motion.
What is the difference between that and the first motion you made?
The first motion had eliminated the management leave. This one Does
Oh,
not include
okay.
that. This is just for the
Okay, so you're not eliminating management leave for this motion, right, Chuck?
That's correct.
Okay. So Michelle, can you please repeat the motion?
His motion is to approve the 3 allocations for health insurance contributions with rounding up the employee plus one to $1,630.
Right, so to be clear, it's employee only for 1,000, employee plus one to 1,630, and family for 2,000.
That is correct.
And so Chuck, that's your motion, and including management leave, but you're kind of carving out the 401A, is that correct?
I'm not.
Just made one motion.
The motion is just for the health insurance contribution.
Okay, which includes the management leave.
No, it does not include the management leave. It only includes the 3 insurance pays.
Well,
Only
then,
making a motion to approve the 3 allocations for the health insurance contribution
And that's it.
and nothing else.
Nothing else.
No changes to
what's the
anything.
difference between this one and your first motion?
The first one eliminated.
Hold on, Robert. What was that?
The first one eliminated management leave.
Right, but Chuck is saying this one eliminates management
No.
leave. This is not, that's what I'm asking. This is not eliminating management leave, correct?
Correct.
Chuck?
That's correct. It's not eliminating it from the plan. It's eliminating it from the motion. It's not included in the motion, management leave.
So
That's what I'm saying.
the only thing that we're voting on, Chuck want to vote on right now, is the three tiers of
Yeah, what I just read, 1,000. Yeah,
Yes.
the money part.
That's
The
all
health
he
insurance
wants.
contributions.
Right. That's all he wants. It eliminated the management plan leave, and it eliminated the time in terms of approving the October 16th date.
No, he just said okay, anyway.
So Michelle, one more time, the motion so that we can move on.
The motion is to approve the allocations for the health insurance contributions for 2021 as they are written in the staff report, except for rounding up the employee plus one to $1,630.
I will second the motion.
A motion been moved in second. Any further comments? If not, we'll call for the vote.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that the motion as made would not address the 2 primary concerns with the management leave and with the 401A plan linkage to the health plan enrollment election. I just, want to make sure everybody understands that.
I appreciate that, Edward. I think that's well taken. So, but I think they get it. So we should.
Okay, understood.
So, Michelle, roll call vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
No.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
Director Jones?
No. Motion's carried. 3-2.
Robert?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make another motion, please. I'd like to move that we eliminate any payment to Part A in the plan for the time being, and consider other ways to do it over the next 1 to 2 months.
Eliminate any what?
I would like to eliminate
401A.
401A from any mention in the compensation plan.
Chuck, I will second that, but I would ask that this includes a referral to the HR committee to consider these issues.
Yes, I think that's maybe HR and even finance, but yes.
I agree. I would agree with that, both HR and finance.
I think there's two different motions, two different actions. One is to eliminate, to reevaluate or revisit the 401A plan. And then another action is to refer to HR. I think there's two different motions right there.
Okay. I appreciate that point, Robert, and I will withdraw the suggestion that it be referred to the committees, and I'll make that as a separate motion.
I'll accept the amender's restatement of the motion. It's to eliminate contribution to 401A plan as part of the compensation plans for the calendar year 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded.
Michelle, can
Call
you
for discussion.
well, hold on. Michelle, can you please read the motion?
The motion is to eliminate any mention of the 401A plan in the compensation plans for calendar year 2021.
I mean, do we really need a motion on that, or can we just give direction from the board and just say kick that issue to the HR committee?
There's a motion on the table.
Okay,
You
yeah,
modify
sorry,
the motion,
Robert.
talk to the maker of the motion.
Robert, may I ask a question?
We're up to discussion now. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, thank you, Robert. By us making this motion, can we go back and confer, I don't know if it'll be with the HR committee, but ourselves as a board to bring this topic back up again when we have enough time to go through it properly?
Answer, Robert?
Of course, it's up for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Rob, I'm just speaking for myself, and it doesn't affect the motion per se. It's my intent that we make the employees whole in terms of our commitment in this plan originally to give every employee a $2,000 benefit. I don't know the best vehicle or form to do that. I think I know of at least, well, I've already mentioned one. Well, we have other options, I believe. I just don't think we have the best plan yet, and I would like to find a better plan over the next month or two. So that's my intent.
Okay. Kirsten, is that what you follow from what Chuck has said?
Yes, that's we're going to take it to the HR committee, I believe, is what the board would like, as well as the finance.
That's not the motion.
That's
That is
the
not
motion.
the motion. That's why I would almost rather
That's
just,
not the motion.
that's not the motion.
Okay.
That may be the intent later. That's why I'm asking Chuck, can't we just, do you need to make the motion, or can we just say, as for the 401A plan, just have the HR committee look at this in terms of ways to make everyone, or to make people whole, in your words?
There's a motion on the table, and Michelle, you can read it again, and we are addressing that motion.
I know that. I'm asking Chuck. I understand that, Robert.
Well, let's get through that. You're asking questions that
Robert, I
think
am
that
trying to ask Chuck. I am trying to ask Chuck if it's easier for us to just direct his idea to the HR committee instead of making a motion where it basically says we're not going to even mention this in any of the what is it, the exact thing, Michelle? We're not mentioning the 401A in any of the plans, or I don't even remember the exact wording.
Yeah.
I mean, we could direct this issue to go to the HR committee instead of making such a definitive motion right now.
The
That's
problem,
what I'm saying.
There is a motion on the table, though.
I understand
deal
that.
with
I'm
that.
asking, I understand that, Robert. I'm just saying that maybe Chuck, if he, if he wants to change his mind and just kick it to the HR committee for the HR committee to look at, that's fine. There wouldn't need to be a motion. It would just be a direction.
it's my understanding that the staff want to give employees a compensation plan for the year 2021. And I don't want that to be in there, but we could revise the plan between now and December 31 to change something, either with a 401A plan or with some other vehicle, but do something to try to restore the $2,000 allowance that we had originally negotiated, or not negotiated, but offered the employees. So no, I think a document is going to be given to them, and I don't want it in the document because that would muddy the waters.
Is that the process, Kristen?
Yes, excuse me, Virginia, Chief.
Yeah, so I think, and I will defer to legal counsel, but because this is an existing option or benefit currently, I think that you have to have a motion, but I'll defer to legal on that because I don't think it could just be direction. We have in existing plans right now, this is an option. And so I think you have to take a formal action to eliminate it, but I'll defer it to Stephen.
So trying to give you the best legal advice we can. If your question is, if the board does not take action tonight, tomorrow, will the comp plans be unchanged? The answer is yes. The board adopted these comp plans. It is for the board to amend them as the board sees fit, whether it does so tonight or after going to a committee. One way or another, it's the board's comp plan, and so only the board can change it.
So this motion, Steve, just to clarify, would change the comp plan.
My understanding of the motion, well, maybe you should read the motion again before I answer that question.
Motion is to eliminate any mention of the 401A in the compensation plans for calendar year 2021.
Someone's going to go through the plan, and every time there's a reference to the 401A plan, we're going to delete it from your comp plan.
Yeah, that's why it's necessary, because
I get it.
No, we can't just make it, we just can't change things. This has to be changed formally by the board.
I understand. Thank you.
And it will not change the 401A plan. You don't have to amend the 401A plan tonight. But if you don't amend the 401A plan, it currently provides for contributions to be made in accordance with the schedule that's shown in the comp plan. So to not have a 401A contribution made in accordance with the way the comp plans currently read, you would need to amend it. You don't have to amend it tonight, but you would need to amend it for 2021 contributions by December 31st, 2021.
So I'm compelled to say one more thing, which is that I appreciate the efforts to simplify this process by delinking things that are combined into making separate little motions. But the unfortunate reality that we have been struggling to give our best advice to staff, and staff has been struggling with the chief to wrestle with these issues, is that there are many issues that are just linked, and it is difficult to unlink them. I think that's Ed's example is a good one, which is that there is both a comp plan and there is a 401A plan. So, and my job is to make sure you're all well informed. So I believe we've accomplished that. I also believe we've given you our best advice. That's all I got to say.
Let me ask a question, Ed, please, Robert.
Yes, go ahead.
And just to clarify here, unless people are putting in new contributions after December 31st, we don't have, as you said, we don't have to amend the comp plan tonight because the comp plan doesn't require us to have a certain contribution level for the year 2021. In other words, we have time to fix according to you, we have to fix the plan anyway. We don't have time to do it tonight, but nothing bad's going to happen between now and January 1st that would require us to make a change tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, to the 401A plan, you have, you have the ability to amend it retroactively. So, yeah, and like I say, there's a deadline for discretionary amendments. So any change that goes into effect in 2021, because currently it has a contribution formula in it, which is what's in the comp plan now. You could amend that effective in 2021. You would have up until December 31st, 2021 to adopt that amendment to the 401A plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more comments? So Michelle, one more last time, could you read the motion? Because it's been made, seconded, but make sure we have clarity on what we voted on.
Yes, sure. It's to eliminate any mention of the 401A in the compensation plans for calendar year 2021. And I should clarify, that is for chief officers and management and confidential employees.
Michelle, can you read the for chief officers and who?
Management and confidential employees.
So, motion made. Okay, roll call vote, Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
No.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
Director Jones?
No. Motion carried 3-2.
Robert?
Yes, sir, Jim.
You know, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion that I discussed earlier. Before I do, I just want to make a comment too that it's my intent as the chair of the HR committee to find a way to make the employees whole. I am not looking for a mechanism to take away, but find that path that provides this budgeted benefit to our employees. So to that end, I move that the compensation issue, including the 401A program in particular, be referred to the HR committee for further development and presentation to the board.
And discussion. I'll second that if you add for further discussion too, but in the HR committee.
No.
I'll take, yes, further discussion in the HR.
I'll second that.
Robert, I'd like to,
Motion been made, seconded, discussion, Rob?
yeah, thank you, Robert. There are some areas when I went through the agreement that I would like to refer to the HR committee, and it's the salary exempt employees involving the medical benefit waiver program, the cured leave, relocation expenses, the professional development aspect, and the special compensation for the management and confidential employees. Those are areas that I think we need to go through and, as Jim said, kind of make everyone whole. And I don't know if that should be included in the motion, or I can do that in a separate email to the chief and CC you as board president, so the HR committee can also look into those too.
Well, Rob, I think that we have a motion on the table right now that's pretty specific. I think that if part of what you, part of the priorities and goals for the HR committee, I think there are some that's current, and that we're trying to finalize those right now. And I think that should be part of that package of workload that get assigned to the HR committee.
Okay.
Sound like that's where you're saying that these are things you want the HR committee to look at.
Robert, I'd like to amend my motion, because I think I don't want to be too narrow. I want to make sure the HR committee has the flexibility to take the comprehensive view of the entire exempt employee package as it is now. We just took a step to amend it, the current plan. So I'd like the HR committee to have the flexibility, the freedom to consider all of these so that we can have all the tools available to us to craft a proposal to present to the board that's fair and equitable and again, makes everybody whole.
So what's your motion, Jim?
That management compensation, the management compensation agreement be referred to the HR committee for review, discussion, and the development of recommendations to the board.
Jim, can I offer one thing? Because it's agreements. So remember, there's 2 now, and it may even need to be 3 once you look at it. And you're right. I appreciate it's all options, right? So it's
Right.
agreements and all options.
I appreciate that. Agreements plural.
Jim, how long do you anticipate that this would take to look at all of this?
Well, I think we have to have a goal of December 31 or, our December meeting at the very latest. In fact, we should perhaps shoot for the November meeting.
So you're thinking a shorter time, not like a year from now?
No.
Okay.
No. We've got the 3% scheduled pay raise that we need to discuss and consider. And then I think all of those things should be considered by the HR committee, and we'll develop recommendations for the full board.
So you have an amendment to your motion, Jim, and I forgot who seconded.
I seconded it.
Virginia seconded. So do you
So
accept?
I'll second that.
You accept his amendment to his motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So motion been made.
So I'd like to clarify, Director
Please.
McLaughlin. So
Yes.
you amended your motion to discuss, well, start off with the 401A plan and the compensation plans, but then you limited it to just management confidential. So you're not talking about the 401A with the chief officers now?
Yes, that is included.
The chief officers.
The 401A program as it applies to all employees.
Okay.
On top of what Director
So your
Milano said.
amendment was in addition to your first motion, correct?
I'm sorry, Michelle, could you?
Your amendment is in addition to the first motion. So the first motion was to move the compensation plans regarding the 401A and refer it to the HR committee, and then also to consider all aspects of the management compensation agreements.
Yes.
So Michelle, on there, just remember it's plans, right? Plural.
I got
plans.
agreements.
Okay.
Yeah,
agreement.
plural.
Yeah, there you go. Either one.
You know
Okay.
what, Director McLaughlin, can you just say the whole thing all together one more time, just so I make sure I understand?
Thank you for your confidence. That the board refer to the HR committee, the 401A program as it applies to all employees, and review and discussion, development of recommendations to the board relative to the management compensation agreements, plural.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be sure. Thanks.
So the motion has been made. It's been seconded by Virginia. Discussion, any more discussion on the issue? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye. So anything else?
Robert,
Yes, sir. One more, Chuck?
I'm not going to make a motion because I don't have enough information, but I would like to hear, now that we've sort of cleared the decks, I'd like to hear from either the chief or Kristen or Ed or whoever could give us some information about what, if anything, should be done about the management leave provision that's currently there. Should we discuss that further? Is there a motion that the board ought to consider? I don't want to take options away, but I don't, maybe the options aren't meaningful, or maybe there's something wrong with them as currently constituted. So I'd like to know, would letting people use the management leave be somehow a violation of something, or would we incur some sort of risk by continuing that plan?
Currently, as written, we are now, the exempt employees are getting a $2,000 benefit, and the non-exempt employees are getting whatever benefit we have for their tier, enrollment tier. So a single exempt person is getting $1,000, or sorry, $2,000, because they're getting $1,000 in management leave and $1,000 in health. And a single non-exempt person is just getting $1,000 for health. It's currently written.
And let me just make sure I'm understanding. We left that in because that doesn't trigger the Flores inclusion of that pay into the calculation of overtime. Is that why it's in the exempt but not in the non-exempt?
That is correct.
And just one last question. Could we solve this whole problem if we just decided to let that be part of the overtime thing? And in other words, let everybody take management leave and they just get their $2,000, but the non-exempt people would get that calculation included in their overtime?
So let me jump in there. We have explored, Director, some of those options, but remember, when you apply it to all groups, you can't necessarily call it management leave. And I think I just heard you say, instead of time, it would be cash, which you can do too, but there's all kinds of different rules depending upon which way you go. And remember, you have, when we combine the exempt and non-exempt, non-chief officers into one group or into one plan, which why I say, plans, there was 3, now there's 2, which may or may not have been a mistake. It certainly made it, I guess, easier for some purposes I'm not familiar with, but all those things are in play, and I'll let Ed say anything there, but that's why I didn't want to see you eliminate it as an option, because there are ways to do things, but you got to be really careful because, again, it's Pandora's box. So Ed, you want to talk about those options in management leave, because you legally can use it for cash allocation, which I think would level all boats was my term when we talked about it, but there's other problems with it too. So I don't know if you want to speak to it real quickly.
Ed?
Ed has stepped away.
Ed stepped away.
There he is.
There you go.
Ed, did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. No, sorry. I had a volume in the next room issue with the TV, so I didn't want to disturb you. The issue with the management leave as it's currently structured is that it's only available to exempt management employees, and they get a flex credit, and they can apply that to health benefits and to purchase management leave up to certain caps. As I understand, I think the first motion eliminated I believe it eliminated the $2,000 flex credit, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're going to, that now exempt management get the same health contribution as the chief officers and the non-exempt. Is that correct? That's kind of what I got from that. So the management leave in the past has only been available to one group, and that created a discrimination issue. So if you are retaining the management leave as a benefit option, I mean, it could, employees are only getting a contribution of up to whatever they elect in terms of their health coverage under the what I understand was approved. Is that correct?
Maybe I'll jump in for half a second. I think the thing that Ed and I are struggling with is that we're trying to make sure we're understanding the current landscape so that we can advise you properly. The current landscape has changed a little bit, so I'm not sure that we're able to perfectly answer your questions because they concern now a different set of circumstances than existed an hour and a half ago. So I think you need to give us a little bit of time to digest how you've changed and what your votes have done, what the impacts of your votes are to your existing plans and your existing obligations, and we'll be happy to get into it with the board, with the HR committee, with the chief, with Kristen.
I think, Steve, I don't want to cut you off because I think these are questions that should be answered in the HR committee. We have voted for a committee. There's a whole lot of discussions should be taking place in that. Our discussion on tonight, which has been taken care of, discuss and approve, we have approved. So I think that comment should be referred to the HR whenever they meet. Because at this point, we have done what we're supposed to have done, charged to do. So I think we're just going down a road now that is going to be regurgitated at the HR committee. So I think, Chuck, if you have any questions along those lines, still further, I think addressing it at the HR committee is the most appropriate thing at this point.
Okay, Robert, if I agree with you, but I'd like to just have Ed and Stephen confirm what you just said, that is, there is nothing that we need to do tonight that will affect open enrollment and where we needed to take an action to bring something into compliance or whatever.
My time.
Steve, Ed, could you answer that question?
It's a hard question to answer. Go ahead.
It's a hard question to answer because the changes have been made in a way that this was sort of designed as an integrated proposal so that we figured out how all these things worked together. And we've done part of it, but not all of it. And so it's difficult to answer that question without trying to sort of sort through how the change was made, how that's going to impact these other benefits.
Let me ask it in another way then. I'm not trying to push for the solution. I just don't want to leave this meeting tonight and then find out that we've made a major goof here. My understanding of the original intent several years ago was to try to give all employees a $2,000 insurance benefit. If they didn't spend it all, they could use it for other things. So $2,000. By leaving the management leave in there, are we somehow giving management a $4,000 benefit in the future, or not? In other words, have we done something that will truly be discriminatory?
Because the management leave was for the exempt management and you've changed so they don't get a $2,000 flex credit. I think that's what the result is. Then really they don't have anything to contribute in terms of an employer contribution to the management leave, but that's just my initial take on it. So I don't think it means they get $4,000.
Let me ask the other way then. Does it mean that they don't have anything to purchase health insurance with during the open enrollment period?
No, I think if I understand the motion for the chief officers and exempt and non-exempt management confidential, as I understand it, the motion that was approved the tiered health credit structure, and if that applies to the exempt management, then I think that would, I mean, I guess that's the issue. It is an issue because right now the comp plan says that exempt management get a $2,000 flex credit that they can apply to health benefits and management leave. So it's just not clear to me how that, because it was done piecemeal, it's a matter of interpretation, what the result of that is, I guess. I think it could be, the interpretation could be that you've changed them from a $2,000 health flex credit to, or flex credit to exactly what everybody else is getting, which is the tiered health benefit structure.
Thank you, Ed. I think
Robert, I'll agree with you that this is too complicated to take up tonight and needs more time.
right.
But I would hope that the chief and our two attorneys and Kristen and so forth can somehow make sure that we don't do something tonight that will have bad consequences down the road. So,
well, I mean, just to be clear, we don't have a vote. So you guys have voted as you have. We've tried to be giving you answer all your questions and give you the best advice we can. But we didn't vote.
Yeah,
I mean,
vote has been cast, so we just need to move on and wait for the consequences if there are any. It may not be.
Well,
So
Robert,
as long as the October 14th date is in the been approved on, we agree to move forward with that, and I think the vote majority voted for the tier system. So that's it. It's in place at this point. So Virginia, you
you're
had
talking
something?
about the October 16th date, right?
Right. I think that, did I say something else?
Yeah, I thought you said 14th. Yeah, so I want to make it so it's clear in my mind that based on the votes tonight, that the attorneys are going to be moving forward based on where we are as of the votes tonight. Is that correct, Steve and Ed?
Totally correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Robert.
So, yes, Rob.
Thank you, Robert. So I'm perfectly clear. This is not going to hold up the employees in order to pick, and they won't be penalized. We fall within the October 16 deadline where they have enough time to do what they need to do, correct?
Steve, Ed, can you answer that?
Stephen or Ed?
Well, I mean, I think that's really a question for the employees and maybe for Kristen, how she's administering open enrollment.
Yes, I mean, I have a couple questions just because the way our comp plan is currently written. It would just be clarifying that the amounts approved are for the cafe plan. And while people may still buy management leave within those amounts, there's nothing separate, because there is currently a separate thing in there that does say any exempt person that's waiving may purchase $2,000 worth of management leave. So that is still there for a waiver, and that still has that discriminatory thing because a non-exempt person waiving would not have that option. They're not getting any 401A. So I think there are still some factors in there with the management leave and the discriminatory thing, but as far as holding up open enrollments, no,
Will not hold up open enrollment with CalPERS.
no.
Thank you.
Michelle, are there any public comment number 2?
Public comment number 2.
No public comment number 2. So I call for motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a move. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Second.
Rob seconded. Roll call. Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Crowley?
Aye.
Director Florno?
Aye.
Director McLaughlin?
Aye.
And Director Jones?
Aye. Motion has passed. So we adjourn at, I don't have whatever time it is. I don't know what.
6:30.
Thank you all.
6:30.
6:30. All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thank you
Michelle,
very
it's
much.
6:30.